Renew your faith, and your life will bear the fruit of hope, joy, and purpose. Ask a Catholic friend or contact your Catholic parish about Renew.
Molly Cooney and TV8, where news is #1.
Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, September 19th. I'm Paula Zahn.
And I'm Harry Smith. Welcome to CBS This Morning.
Making headlines this morning, U.S. air power at the ready as sabers rattle in the Gulf again.
Plus, a story of courage and persistence. We'll talk with paraplegic rock climber Mark Wellman.
And apples are back with more kinds and a bigger crop than ever. Got a whole new vocabulary for you to get used to this morning.
Really?
Macintosh,
Yeah.
Granny Smith, the ones we're familiar with.
Right.
No more. We've got Fuji, Jonagle, a whole list of them to introduce you to.
Get out of here.
Bigger
They
and
still
better
have the
than ever.
Macintosh, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best in the fall.
Oh, well, we'll see about that. We're going to have a little, maybe even a taste test
All
later
right, all right. Also this morning, the major automakers are about to unveil the new cars for '92. This morning, which American models might win back part of the car market from the Japanese?
And our complete coverage of the latest rumblings of war in the Gulf begins in just a minute. But first, here's Mark McEwen with a glance at the weather. Nice jacket.
Thank you very much. Good to have you back, Paula.
Thanks.
Good morning to you, Harry.
Looks like fall.
You like that?
Although it's 90 and steamy
We
out
have
there
2
this
more
morning.
days until fall. Let's take a look at the map. There's some fall in the air. If you're going out the door this morning in the Northeast, take an umbrella and a jacket. You're going to need it when you come back tonight because the temperatures will be dropping throughout the day. You're going to love tomorrow. You're going to love tomorrow. Midwest is kind of cold, and we have some rain to talk about as well. Harry?
Thank you.
Very
nice. Time now for this morning's news. Iraq this morning is accusing the United States of trumping up an issue to justify renewed military attacks. But the Iraqis, in their first response to President Bush's threat of military action, are not rejecting outright the demands of the U.S. and its allies. The chief demand is unrestricted UN inspection of Iraqi weapons facilities. We begin our coverage of the story with Jim Stewart at the Pentagon. Good morning, Jim.
Morning, Harry. There were no deployments of U.S. forces overnight, and barring any unforeseen provocative action by Iraq, we may well not see any today either. The choice now appears to be Saddam Hussein's on whether to comply with the UN resolutions or not. A little bit more is known this morning, though, about the U.S. forces that would be sent if they were needed. And it's important to note here that we're not talking about a very large force at all. In the very colorless lingo of the Pentagon, what we're talking about really is an Air Force suppression package, about 50 to 60 aircraft altogether.
The alert orders went out to units of F-15 and F-16 fighters, as well as large helicopter units and the refueling planes and personnel needed to maintain them. Along with the estimated 50 warplanes still in Saudi Arabia from Desert Storm, more than enough to carry out any escort mission for UN personnel.
It's a prudent course for those of us in the Defense Department to be involved in planning for contingencies. And that's exactly what we're doing.
In addition, nearly 40,000 U.S. forces remain in the region since the war's end, including 2 aircraft carrier battle groups. The administration is hoping those forces and this latest warning will be enough to convince Saddam Hussein to toe the line and let UN inspectors do their job.
We've told Iraq that failure to comply unconditionally with the Security Council's mandatory resolutions will have grave consequences.
Several times now, Iraq has blinked since the end of the war when threatened with the additional use of force, most notably when additional aid and protection were given to Kurdish refugees in the northern part of Iraq, despite Baghdad's protest. The hope here now is that Baghdad will blink again. Harry?
All right, Jim Stewart at the Pentagon this morning. Thank you. President Bush issued his warning to Iraq just as he was starting a campaign trip in the West. Randall Pinkston is in Salt Lake City with some of the president's thinking this morning. Good morning, Randall.
Good morning, Harry. To reiterate the point made by Jim Stewart, the Bush administration is playing down the threat of a full-scale invasion of Iraq, but the threat is nonetheless clear. President Bush is saying to Saddam Hussein that he must allow those UN teams unimpeded access to take a look at Iraq's weapons. Otherwise, the U.S. will be prepared to use force. As he toured the Grand Canyon, President Bush told reporters he's fed up with the Iraqi leader and his repeated violations of United Nations ceasefire agreements.
It's very difficult policy, we've all seen. Very difficult.
Was
But
this
we
in the
intend
way
to
of
see that these resolutions are complied with. He's not going to question our resolve on this. I mean, he may be testing and probing here and there, but he knows better than to take on the United States of America in this regard.
While seeking to pressure Saddam, the president and his national security advisor expressed hope that the mere specter of renewed military action will be sufficient and that there will be no need to issue an order to begin military escort missions.
Now, if
then they need some kind of protection, and that's what it is we're talking about.
I don't believe it'll come to that. I don't think you do, and I don't think the Defense Department does. So this is what we would call prudent
So you're saying
planning.
that the
President Bush says Saddam has no choice but to comply. But when pressed by reporters about a deadline, Mr. Bush says there is no deadline at this time. Harry?
All right, Randall, Pinkston in Salt Lake City, thanks very much this morning. One of the bases that would provide planes and flyers for any new operation is Shaw Air Force Base in Sumter, South Carolina. Erin Hayes is there this morning. Good morning, Erin.
Morning, Harry. Shaw Air Force officials say they have no news this morning, and they're telling the local people in Sumter they know of no word yet on any deployment. That's small consolation because last year's deployment to the Middle East came on such short notice here, and people here are worried. Sumter still remembers the difficulties caused by Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Not everyone's recovered from those, and news of a possible second round with Iraq stunned folks here.
My alarm clock went off and I woke up to that, so I was like, great, this is not fun.
It's very nerve-wracking. We don't want it to happen again.
Plenty are worried military families could be in for another rough time.
See these goosebumps? It's sad because a lot of our friends had to go.
It was difficult to go through the first time. We don't, any of us want to go through it again.
Babies being born, husbands couldn't be here.
Sumter's economy is shaken already from the huge deployment of forces last year. It's a concern once again.
We have a great concern about it. We certainly would hate to think that our folks might be deployed.
There's little doubt among the local folks that if there is an airstrike against Iraq, Shaw Air Force personnel would likely be involved. What people here are hoping is that an airstrike won't be necessary. Harry?
Erin Hayes reporting for us this morning. Thank you. There is no sign today of British hostage Jack Mann or any of the other Western hostages in Lebanon. Iran's official news agency reported yesterday that a hostage, probably Mann, would be released within hours. Even though nothing has happened, diplomats remain optimistic. Secretary of State Baker arrived this morning in Jordan, the latest stop on his swing through the Middle East. Baker is meeting with King Hussein to go over plans for a Mideast peace conference. Yesterday in Damascus, Syrian officials told Baker that U.S. loan guarantees to Israel would be a major obstacle to peace. In the financial markets this morning, the dollar is holding steady against other major currencies. The Tokyo stock market closed higher. The Nikkei index rose 14 points. It's a small fraction of 1%. And Wall Street heads into the day with a Dow Industrial Average at 3,017 after gaining almost 5 points yesterday. Baseball's pennant races did not produce any changes last night in Los Angeles. The Houston Astros tied the Dodgers on an infield hit in the top of the 7th inning. The Dodgers took the lead for good on Mike Shapperson's single in the bottom of the inning. LA remains a half game up on Atlanta in the National League's West. In the American League, Kelly Gruber's run-scoring single in the top of the 12th inning put Toronto up for good at Seattle. The Blue Jays maintain their 2.5-game lead over Boston in the American League East. It is 8 after the hour. Mark has our weather this morning, and might I add at this point that I was watching the new Red Fox show and the other new show, Teach, last night. Yes. And those spectacular promos with the you look great.
Who do you like in baseball, Harry, real quickly? Who do you think? National League West?
Ooh, the Braves are the best story, but we kind of like the Dodgers. Okay. We know Tommy, right?
American League East, real quick.
Well, I'd like to see Boston kind of come up from nowhere, right? Wouldn't you?
Yeah, sure, why not?
2.5
You look marvelous today as well, Harry. Good morning, everybody out there. To you also. We have some good weather to talk about, some bad weather to talk about. As I mentioned before, if you're heading out into the Northeast today, take an umbrella, take a coat, because you're going to need it when you come back tonight. You are going to love tomorrow. All that hot weather that you've been seeing is going to be gone. A lot of rain today in the Northeast. If it's not raining where you are now, will be raining later on today. Some thunderstorms moving off the coast. Rain following behind that. Down through the southeast, you're going to see some rain as well. We're going to have a close-up on this map a little bit later on today. I want to point out Hazard, Kentucky. The Black Gold Festival begins there today. Runs through the weekend. Their 10th Black Gold Festival. Waylon Jennings will be there. Garth Brooks is going to be there. Sawyer Brown. Lots of people. There's Hazard right there. They will see a high of 65 degrees. Got to put this up here because yesterday in Duluth, that's the 45 that you see just to the right of me sitting in front of the fireplace, warming up the Tootsies. Duluth had a little over 2 inches of snow. I said the S word. I didn't want to say the S word, but over 2 inches of snow yesterday. And by the way, fall begins on the 23rd this year. A lot of people, including myself, said the 21st, but it's the 23rd this year, in case you're counting. Thunderstorm activity down through the southwest. We're going to put this up here. Eugene, Oregon, will see a high of 85 degrees. Get thee to a Blade King. Get yourself out on the roads and do a little rollerblading. 85 in Los Angeles as well, and not too much bad weather to talk about. In Alaska, 59 degrees. In Fairbanks, 55 in Anchorage. 88 degrees will be the high today in Honolulu. That's a quick look at the national forecast. Let's take a look at your weather.
The Des Moines area forecast for today, mostly sunny with a high of 57. Tonight, mostly clear with a chance for frost, lows near freezing. And for Friday, mostly sunny and warmer with a high of 67 degrees. Currently in Des Moines, clear skies and 33 degrees.
We'll do the wake-up call next time around. We'll also zone in a little bit on that rain that's happening in the east. Paula?
Just as long as you get it out of here, Mark.
All right.
Months after the Gulf War, the U.S. still has some 36,000 troops and 19 warships in the region, and more may be on the way, pressing Saddam Hussein to let UN inspectors look for hidden weapons. Joining us this morning to talk about that, two retired generals who helped us out during our coverage of the war. From Washington, Michael Dugan, a former Air Force Chief of Staff, and here in New York, George Crist, a former commander of American forces in the Gulf. Good morning, General. Thanks for joining us. General Dugan, we're going to start with you first this morning. We have heard about the air cap that our additional planes may provide for this operation. Give us an idea of how this might work.
Good morning, Paula. The UN teams, of course, have been moving around what we would call transport helicopters, and the idea is to provide some escort to those helicopters in case they go into harm's way. Once one provides perhaps Apache helicopters as escorts, then it is prudent to have something like F-15s to ensure that the whole package is safe. To provide additional E-3 AWACS coverage in the air that would give broad radar coverage to make sure that no other Iraqi Air Force airplanes intrude on the movement of the UN teams and the escort helicopters.
General Dugan, can you give us an idea of how the operation would actually fall into place once the president gives the order to deploy more planes to Saudi Arabia in the area?
Well, Paul, I think the first thing to think about and to understand is that since 2 August of last year, we haven't done anything precipitous. This has been a very deliberate action. The president has lined up allies, the president has lined up the UN, the president has lined up the country, and that we shouldn't expect anything to happen in the next couple of days. And indeed, if it became necessary to move forces once they showed up in place, I don't think anything precipitous would happen a day or two after that. And so this will be a very deliberate affair, too. We would take over a mix of equipments, both air and ground and sea. We would protect them with things like Patriot, and we would put together a whole team and then orchestrate them in a very careful fashion.
General Crist, let's talk about how the whole team would be integrated. We talked earlier on about some 36,000 troops already being in the region. And the number of ships in the region. Walk us through the steps on the ground and what would have to happen to provide cover for the air cap.
Well, Paula, first you have to think of the 36,000 we have over there. Almost 16,000 of them are Navy and on the ships. So there's, on the ground, there's only about 54 Air Force aircraft and only about 1,500 combat troops. Now, if we're going to take the UN inspectors in, we're going to have to provide the helicopters for them. That means military helicopters. We're going to have to provide some shotguns. Somebody's got to protect these fellas when they go in on the ground. Suppose they're shot at. So that means some American ground forces are going to have to go in. That means we're going to have to bring in some heavy lift helicopters. We're going to have to bring in some sort of ground troops, such as maybe the Special Forces. There's 3,000 Marines on board ship now in the Gulf that could help. Aircraft, special kinds of aircraft in addition to what's there, F-117s, F-15s, 16s, perhaps some more reconnaissance airplanes. There's 45 sites involved here where they think they're suspicious locations of these materials. And the UN's probably going to have to go to each one of those sites.
But given the amount of time that Saddam Hussein has had to hide things, what are the chances that at any of these 45 suspicious sites we're going to get to what we want to get to?
But Paula, the UN has a pretty good idea of what they're looking for. You know, they made some rather large discoveries of chemical munitions. They're looking for some other things, and they think they know where there are, at least. If we can find the bulk of these things, the peripherals won't count so much. But their missiles, particularly the Scuds, they say there's maybe 200 Scuds left in Iraq. So that's the kind of thing they're going to have to look for. There's going to be a lot of reconnaissance, aircraft overhead looking to see where these things are.
General Dugan, are you as optimistic that we're going to find what we need to find and want to find?
Well, Paula, I think we would be foolish if we thought that we would get 100% of all the chemicals, all the potential biologicals, all the potential sites. But indeed, over the past 8 or 9 months, we have had additional opportunities to look, to analyze data that we had previously, to collect new data, and we're a lot smarter than we were last February. And so I think if we have to go in, we can do something useful and something lasting.
General Dugan, General Crist, nice to have you both with us again. Harry?
Thanks, Paula. 15 minutes after the hour. Next, Fouad Ajami and whether Saddam would risk another war and another devastating loss. And in our next half hour on CBS This Morning, the 92 model year cars still fighting the import war. Plus, Dr. Bob Arnott with important news about treating dyslexia. And Donna Mills in an important CBS movie about fathers and child support.
50+ Lifestyles is excited to present the first annual Central Iowa Retirement Community Open House Sunday, September 22nd from 1 to 4 p.m. Here's your chance to visit 8 of Central Iowa's finest retirement communities, ask questions, and see all they have to offer. Refreshments will be served, and you can register to win a trip to Las Vegas at each location. Be sure to pick up this month's issue of 50+ Lifestyles for more information about the first annual Central Iowa Retirement Community Open House this Sunday.
We're here at Carpetland USA's blockbuster carpet sale, and it's a smash hit. Why? Because we've never offered bigger discounts. See every carpet color and style slash 35 to 50%, featuring savings on every color and style of Ansel Crush Resistor carpet, the carpet that holds up under pressure. Plus, get coupons good for savings of up to an extra $200 off. It's your ticket to extra carpet savings. It's a blockbuster carpet sale going on now at Carpetland USA near you.
We did something last Saturday that was really fun. Mom and Dad took my brother and me to the Ingersoll Children's Theater. First they gave us lunch and it was very yummy. Then came a play and it was really exciting. The characters even came out to the audience and I got to be part of the show. There were lots of other kids there too. It was really fun to do something new and different with my family on Saturday. Better than just watching cartoons.
Call for tickets to Hansel and Gretel this Saturday at the Ingersoll Children's Theater.
At Iowa Methodist, the concern for quality of life extends far beyond the boundaries of our medical center. Our team commitment of helping others radiates to the community through the United Way of Central Iowa. We believe in their people helping people philosophy and support their excellent programs. We truly value teamwork at Iowa Methodist, and that's what United Way is all about. Small individual efforts which collectively have the power to make lives better and futures brighter.
17 minutes after the hour, and we continue our coverage of the Persian Gulf situation with Middle East expert and CBS News consultant Fouad Ajami, who joins us from Washington. Good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
Seems like we spent the last year trying to second-guess Saddam Hussein. We might as well do it one more morning, right?
Exactly.
The United States has been threatening to do something like this for about 6 months now. Why has Saddam Hussein not taken it seriously?
Well, Harry, that's exactly the point. I mean, Saddam hasn't really played the role we've scripted for him. He's a defeated man. He's really on parole. I mean, Saddam, if you to use the penal language, is someone on probation. He's been violating the terms of his probation. He doesn't really play the chastened and defeated man. He's playing cat and mouse with UN teams. It turns out that he has more chemical warheads than we thought. It turns out that he has enriched uranium and so on. The whole range of what he has is a challenge to the U.S. And you look at President Bush's dilemma. He has this new world order he wants to establish. The Middle East is key to it. And yet there is this man, Saddam Hussein. He still taunts the president. And so we are in this position that we have won this great big war. And we prevailed in the Persian Gulf, but we still have the man himself mocking the victor. And this is a dilemma for President Bush.
So the president ups the ante, makes a very visible show that he may in fact want to go in there and truly support the UN fact-finding teams. What's Saddam Hussein's next move then?
Well, exactly. I think this is, I mean, my own guess, and you know, reading Saddam's mind, I mean, we learned in the year behind us how difficult this was. Saddam will probably fold. He has tested Bush before, and he's seen Bush come through on his threats before. So I think you look at Saddam's own dilemma, you look at Saddam's own choice. He has no money, his whole regime is faltering. He cannot sell his oil, his power. This is a man who possesses tremendous ego and tremendous vanity. His regime's on the ropes. He has no money to buy weapons or to feed his population. And so I think he will look at this new American resolve and he'll realize that he is tempting the fates again. And back up just a minute, Harry, for the American position. Now look at President Bush's own dilemma. He's got this feud going on with Israel. There is an American-Israeli crisis. And as we are fighting with our Israeli allies over loan guarantees and the like, the president has to show his own toughness. He must establish some kind of balance, that he is truly serious about establishing some new order in the Middle East. The president has picked the Middle East to say, look, this is the last place in the world that needs some new deal, some new arrangement, that the whole world has moved except for the Middle East. So being tough on Saddam, it really is, if you will, part of this establishing the American position and a balance in the region.
Well, it's clear the president has the backing of Britain and France, even the Soviet Union, and deciding to go ahead and up the ante like this. How is this going to play, though, with, say, Egypt or Syria?
I think the rest will simply go along. This was always, to begin with, this whole Operation Desert Storm, this whole containment of Iraq was always an American operation. It was always, we put on it a UN helmet. We asked the Arabs for approval. We asked the Europeans for approval. They went along. The Soviets went along. This really has always remained President Bush's war. If he wants to take another swipe at Saddam, if he's going to be the one who will do it, the rest of the world will simply stand aside and say, okay, finish the job that you started. But the very fundamental point that has to be made is that Saddam continues to taunt the American victory because we never did what really had to be done at the beginning. We had to drive on to Baghdad and take care of him. We didn't do so. And so it's the unfinished war and the defeated man who still lingers on and hangs around.
I want to jump shift real quickly now to another subject. The Iranians came out yesterday, said they were going to release Jack Man within a matter of hours. That hasn't happened. From what you understand of what's going on over there, are all the places, in fact, all the pieces of the puzzle in place, and it's just a matter of time to get them all played out, to get all the hostages out?
I'm not sure I would want to go this far because Jack Man, remember one thing about Man, I just heard the Jack Man is 77 years old. Jack Man is not a very expensive hostage. He's a Brit, and they could release him in Beirut. The American hostages, I think, still remain a more tangled affair. So we must wait, and we must wait on the Iranians and on their subcontractors and agents in Beirut. I'm not sure we can say that everything is on.
Fouad Ajami, thank you as always for taking the time to chat with us this morning. Do appreciate it. Paula?
22 minutes after the hour right now, the 92 American cars, are they hot enough to take on the imports? We're going to find out a little bit later on this morning. And we'll also be talking with actress Donna Mills about a new film she directed. That coming up. Stay with us.
Have the hands of time made you look and feel older than you really are? General Nutrition Centers introduces the all-natural time-release day and night moisturizing creams. Amazing time-release creams of skin-replenishing botanicals